the nature of the subconscious mind works, when it does most of its learning, how the programs get in there, what the subconscious mind's primary role is, which is to keep you safe. And the way that it thinks that you're supposed to be safe is by doing what other people do, wearing what other people wear, thinking what other people think, and believing what other people believe. And so that's actually not true. When you grow up and individuate and really start to develop a mature psychology about your life, you start to have the courage and the conviction and just the personal power to live as an adult, to make decisions for yourself, to do the things that are right for you. And then because your subconscious mind is watching everything, you see everything around you, it sees everything while you're sleeping, it sees everything, even when you're in especially when you're like in a hypnotic state watching TV or media, like it absorbs everything. And so it's always looking for the repetitive behaviors. How the subconscious mind works is if it sees something happen once in the environment, okay. If it sees something happen twice, like somebody tattooing their face, for example, it starts to take note. If it sees all of a sudden celebrities and music stars and everybody has face tattoos, the subconscious mind starts to believe it ranks that behavior as being a safer behavior amongst the tribe. And if I do this, I'll have a better chance of fitting in. If I fit in, I won't be rejected. I will be accepted. I won't be ostracized or kicked out. I have a better chance of survival by being being amongst the perceived powerful tribe. Everybody's witnessing right now the breakdown of society, and it happens because people don't value life. They don't understand wealth. They don't. Their connection to their family and their community is being broken. There are wedges between them and other people in their communities are being formed, and so these programs are very much an attack on society as whole. And the reason for that is because those presenting this information and these ideas to the public really want to create an environment to where it's easy to control people, to where it's easy to get large numbers of people to go along, to get along with whatever's thrown.
Today we have an episode of TruthTheory podcast, and I have an interview with Dylan Charles, who is the chief editor of Waking Times. Waking Times is a website that I've been following for many years. This is how I got to know Dylan firsthand. They've been publishing thousands of pieces of content over the years about all sorts of fascinating topics, things similar to TruthTheory, and obviously censorship is hitting hard. So Dylan became less active with creating content, and he decided to focus more on coaching because this is something he's very passionate about. So we're going to talk about his transformation and what it means to be a coach these days and how he's helping his clients. So Dylan is actually self-mastery and self-sabotage coach, and in this episode of TruthTheory podcast we are talking about what is self-sabotage, how media and different programs from our family and in society are programming us to be destructive and self-sabotage ourselves, and how can we overcome that. We also talked about the power of subconscious mind, how this is used against us, how to deprogram your subconscious mind. What are some of the most common self-sabotage areas, from addiction issues, money issues, things like that. And Dylan also shares about his experiences with plant medicines like ibogaine and ayahuasca. He was actually living in Costa Rica for 6 years, and he was facilitating ceremonies with ayahuasca and other plant medicines. So kind of working like as a shaman, really, with some Ecuadorian elders. So lots of really interesting topics, and especially about how mind works, how we are being programmed, how we sabotage ourselves. So I hope you're going to really like and enjoy this episode of TruthTheory podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Dylan Charles. Okay, this is Mike Sigala from TruthTheory.com, and this is TruthTheory Podcast, and my guest today is Dylan Charles, who is the founder and chief editor of WakingTimes.com. Throughout the years, Dylan has written hundreds of articles and inspired millions of people all around the world with his powerful message of transformation. He went through a remarkable journey from addiction and self-sabotage into shamanism and self-mastery. And today he's a certified self-sabotage and self-mastery coach, and is helping his clients to become the best versions of themselves. You can learn more about his coaching at dylancharlescoaching.com. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
No, thanks for joining me. So let's have a chat. It's funny that we kind of, how long we've known each other for, like 10 years or 8 years or something?
Yeah, close to probably at least 8. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I've talked to you many times over the years, and we've been partners in the independent media. I'll say it like that. And we've had some good conversations over the years. We talked about plant medicines together, and you've shared some of your journeys with me, which has been interesting. So,
yeah, it's interesting that we both ended up running similar websites, and we both like similar things, right? Because you are into martial arts, kung fu. I was into kickboxing. I think you do qigong as well, qigong, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Same thing here. I'm a big fan of electronic music, and I used to rave a lot. And you're a techno DJ.
Yes. Yeah, all that stuff. I've been a DJ for close to 30 years, martial artist for about 20 years, and I've done a lot of different martial arts. And these days, I'm just about to start a new journey. My 10-year-old son has been going to a Taekwondo school for almost a couple years, and he's been asking me, he's like, "Dad, come do Taekwondo with me." And I've done a little bit of Taekwondo in the past, but I decided to sign up with him, so I'm going to start next month and going all the way to black belt. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. A lot of kind of similar bits and pieces, let's say. And I think even now with, the transformation you are going through with like moving away from being the editor-in-chief, right? More into coaching.
As you know,
like just balancing things in the different ways these days, right?
Right. Let me say it like this. I mean, I started my website, wakingtimes.com. I started that in 2011. This is probably about the same time you started TruthTheory. What an incredible journey that was. I started that when I was living in Costa Rica. I lived there for about 7 years, and that was really about the time also that I started my journeys and started getting my experience with shamanic plant medicines, both ayahuasca and iboga, the medicine from Africa. And so that was really, really inspiring for me during that time of running Waking Times. But in the last few years, I've been inspired really to back off and not really focus so much on content, because there's a lot of content out there, especially a lot of content about what's going on in the world. And really wanted to put my experience, knowledge, and wisdom into service of helping people directly. So yeah, I've made a major transition over the last year, really, and I've been working with clients directly and also hosting a few different programs that I'm helping people to overcome self-sabotage, and also really just to get themselves out of the way so they can really find their own unique path to self-mastery. And it's really powerful work. I love it more than anything I've ever done. So,
but maybe can share with us just the journey, because I know you had issues when you were a teenager, substance abuse, and that's kind of really made you also to become a coach, right? Because you went through some of these things yourself.
Right.
You learned how to overcome these challenges, and now you are able to help others, right? Maybe you can tell us your story from the beginning.
I think that's an important thing, because I was talking with someone just the other day, and they referred to coaching as therapy, and I wanted to make the distinction to them that I made the distinction to them that it's not therapy. Like, coaches are different. Coaches really, therapy relies on different techniques, different protocols to really help people to understand their path or make past or make peace with their past and understand some of the reasons why they are. But coaches really are it's a whole kind of a unique field, because they use their own personal history, they use their own experience, and so that isn't for everybody. Like, their clients can't be everybody, but for people who are going through similar things, to have somebody that's been through it all and made it through the other side to find success and happiness and health and wealth and all that is it's a powerful paradigm because as coaches, we're able to look at the present moment. We're able to help them to see avenues to get to the future that they're looking for. So it's a lot different than therapy or psychotherapy or anything like that. But I'll try to keep this short. My journey is it's pretty in depth. I mean, I started things. My childhood was fraught with a lot of like tension, anger, a lot of chaos. There was a divorce in the home when I was young, and so I lived with my mom and my older brother. So he was very violent towards me my entire youth. My mom raised us. I didn't see my dad a whole lot, but he was in my life, but she was out of the house a lot. So I spent a lot of time in the house alone with an abusive brother. So I developed these very common, typical patterns of trauma bonding, not really feeling safe, even in my own home, even in my own skin. And I'm really, at the age of 46 now, I'm really starting to unravel really just how much that impacted me and how much it impacted my perspective on the world. And I'll get to that. But all of that stuff, that chaos that I grew up in, it really led me to try to like cope with it in a way that a lot of people do, which is self-medication. I started smoking cigarettes when I was like 12. I learned that habit from my grandfather who smoked all the time around me. I started drinking alcohol when I was 14, blackout drinking when I was 15, mostly liquor, raiding mom's liquor cabinet. And it wasn't until I got out of high school that I really started doing drugs and I got into the party scene. And, there was a lot of like ecstasy, party drugs, that sort of stuff. And then one day, someone close to me invited me to try crystal meth. And, I was reluctant to try it at first, but I didn't want to be the odd man out. I wanted to fit in and blend in with the people. I didn't want to be left behind or rejected by the group of people that I'd found that really seemed to like me for the first time, So I went down that path, and I spent probably 5 years, probably close to 3 years, as a pretty serious addict to methamphetamines, which is a pretty nasty thing. It's really a nightmare for a lot of people. A lot of people can't get out of it, and I was fortunate that after a few years, I was able to free myself from that. But of course, the fallout of that was that I was left with a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of just problems with my nervous system, a lot of problems with just my overall internal balance. And when I was about 26, 27 years old, I really started to just sink deeper and deeper into isolation, alcoholism, and was really just like soothing myself with alcohol, pot, pills like Valiums and Xanax and all of these sorts of things that are, quite frankly, they're really common, especially with young people today. And ultimately, like it brought me to like the lowest point I'd ever been to in my life. I was basically just isolating myself all the time, wasting myself away. I was like deep into porn addiction and just like a lot of things that people get into. And so I went for help. I decided one day that I'd had enough, and I decided to go reach out for help. So I went to my doctor, and he immediately prescribed antidepressants. I had negative reactions to those from the first pills and realized immediately that this was something to be cautious of. But he referred me to a leading psychiatrist in my town of Austin, Texas, back in the day. And so the following week, I went to a psychiatrist, and this really top-tier psychiatrist. And in a 1-hour visit, I'll keep this short, but in a 1-hour visit, which was really a life-changing moment for me, he thought it was wise to prescribe me with 7 different medications to take every single day. So this was like anti-schizophrenic medicines, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, things to help me sleep, things to help me wake up, things to help me, it was this whole plethora of pills, and he had samples for all of them. So I left his office with a bag of pills, like a bag of free samples of pills. And I remember walking out of the office, and the bag was shaking in my right hand, and walked out into the parking lot and looked up in the sky and had this moment of clarity. It was like, what are you going to do with this? Because I had asked the doctor, I said, how long am I going to need to be taking this stuff? And he was like, this one you'll need for this long, that one for this long, this one. But overall, you're going to be on these for the rest of your life because you have a chemical imbalance. And I was only like 26 years old. So the absurdity of it all was really a blessing, and it wasn't even in disguise. When I went out into the parking lot, I looked up in the sky, and like I said, I had a moment of clarity, and it was this voice told me to dump all that garbage in the trash, which I did immediately, never took any of it. And was the revelation that I had was that there was nobody else but me that was going to be able to take full responsibility for my own happiness, my own wellness, my own well-being. And so about a week later at my office, one of the guys, I saw him coming and going with all these kung fu weapons, like staffs, bow staffs, short sticks, swords, these sorts of things, nunchucks. And so I asked him what he was up to, and he invited me to the Kung Fu studio. So I started Kung Fu about 2 weeks after that psychiatry visit, and within 3 weeks of training hard, just this first 3 weeks, within 3 weeks, the anxiety was almost gone, the depression was pretty much gone, and I had found a really positive tribe of people to be around, and they were all concerned with health. They all wanted to be strong and powerful in their own right, and they also wanted to treat other people with respect, and that was something that I was new to, being around a group of people like that. And so that began my martial arts journey, and that really was I always say that it saved my life, because it really did. It really saved my life, and it really brought me out of a dark point. But that really set me on the path to find myself, and that led to Qigong and Tai Chi. And when you discover those practices for the first time and you take them seriously, you learn. If you're studying, with intention, you learn that there's a lot more to the body and the human spirit than we've been led to believe. We're all sort of like tricked into living in this 3D reality and having this identity of just living in a meat sack human body, that's here to work and earn, and be productive in our economy. But when you dive into those practices, you can find out really quickly that there's a whole lot going on inside of you internally, with the bioelectricity in the body, with the energy meridians in the body, and with the innate internal power that you have. And so to unlock and awaken that was really, really powerful for me. And so ultimately, in 2009, my wife and our 2 kids at the time left the country and decided to live in Costa Rica for a little bit. We ended up staying 7 years, but once we got down there, just sort of fell into my lap. I just sort of all these synchronicities happened, and doors opened where I was just like called into the realm of shamanic plant medicines. And at the time, I had no idea what it was about, but I found myself at a retreat with some proper traditional elders of a tribe from the northern Ecuador region called the Secoya. And that was my first experience in January of 2011 with this powerful medicine. We call it yahe, but it's ayahuasca. And that was incredibly life-changing for me. And so in those first experiences, I was able to see and reconcile the damage that I had done to my body and my soul and my spirit through the poor choices that I had made, and through just the simple fact of being a typical lost teenager, young man in this world, not knowing his purpose, not knowing what he's here to do, and not really having any good examples of how to live a good, healthy, prosperous life. And so right off the bat, my experiences with the plant medicine really helped me to detoxify all of the residual chemical toxicity from the years of drug abuse and whatnot. And that ultimately led me just deep into that world of Amazonian shamanic medicine with the Secoya. And then I think it was 2012, I finally opened myself up to accept an invitation to experience the African medicine in Boga. And I kind of resisted that for a couple of years, but when I finally did, it was a tremendously powerful experience for me. And that's when I really was able to first detoxify, not like the chemical aspects of what I had poisoned myself with, but the spiritual aspects of what really we're all kind of poisoned and toxined with in this world. Everybody knows the movie The Matrix. Well, The Matrix, if you look at it as a form of energy, it's very dense, it's very dark, it's very controlling. It does not nurture spirit. It does not respect life. And so what I found when I first did Iboga was that I had all these belief systems operating inside my subconscious mind that had been implanted in there into me by just the environment, the culture that we live in. And so that really was an opportunity to start deprogramming all that, and that over the next 5 or 6 years, a lot of that medicine and yahe really helped me to clear all that, but really to just clean out my subconscious mind. And so now I work as a self-sabotage coach, and the main area that we focus on as self-sabotage coaches is the subconscious mind, the programs running in the subconscious mind. So what we do is we help people to really see how they're operating in unconscious ways. They may think they're doing something that is an organic, conscious decision, but so many people sabotage themselves by, some real common ones, Mike, are just eating junk.
Hey, this is Mike, and I just wanted to ask you for a small favor. If you could let us know in the comments what you think about this episode, and if you are watching a video version on YouTube or elsewhere, please subscribe to this channel, like, and let us know in the comments. I try to answer comments. If you want to ask some questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And if you are listening to audio version on Apple Podcasts or elsewhere, please if you could take a moment and review this podcast and leave a comment as well. Whenever you guys engage, this improves visibility of this podcast so more people can discover it. And I'm always happy to answer your questions. Thanks for all your help. And now back to the show.
Like, or just eating junk food, using as one of my associates likes to say, using your mouth as a garbage can, right? Dumping all of the toxic chemicals and all of the food additives and everything into your face. That's a form of self-sabotage there, because we all know that it's bad for us. We all know that it doesn't support our health, but so many of us do it anyway. So self-sabotage is really the idea of anything that you do that would carry you further away from making your dreams possible, from living the reality that you deserve. So any behavior that detracts you or pulls you back or keeps you away from that. And so many people do this. So whether it's the foods that they eat, whether it's alcohol, caffeine is a big one. People really don't understand the true nature of caffeine and the impact that it has on the nervous system, and how that impact drives us into thinking with the lower parts of the mind, the short-term thinking parts of the mind, like the reptilian brain. And so we really help people to understand how they were programmed by their tribe of origin, their family of origin, which is their family, their siblings, maybe aunts, uncles, and how all of how the nature of the subconscious mind works, when it does most of its learning, how the programs get in there, what the subconscious mind's primary role is, which is to keep you safe. And the way that it thinks that you're supposed to be safe is by doing what other people do, wearing what other people wear, thinking what other people think, and believing what other people believe. And so that's actually not true. When you grow up and individuate and really start to develop a mature psychology about your life, you start to have the courage and the conviction and just the personal power to live as an adult, to make decisions for yourself, to do the things that are right for you. And so I've overcome, like I said, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, addiction to pills, porn, also other forms of self-sabotage, or like just recreating the chaos that I experienced as a kid, but recreating it in my relationships as an adult. So with my wife, introducing a lot of chaos and arguing and fighting and that sort of thing into the relationship. Also wealth programming, falling into debt traps and these sorts of things. So pretty much all the forms of self-sabotage that you can imagine, I've lived through them and have really overcome them now. And I live a very healthy, clean life, and I just really, I feel very powerful in my own right these days.
So could you give us like a case study, let's say, of one of your clients, obviously without naming them,
mm-hmm.
like someone you helped? Let's say, what was their challenge? How did they approach you? What was the process of learning, the blocking aspects and all the other elements? If you could give us like a summary, for example.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. I am a certified FFSS Freedom from Self-Sabotage coach. And so with that program, I work, with that certification, I administer a very specific program. But also serve as what I call a self-mastery coach. So there's two different things and they overlap. I feel like self-mastery is a path, right? It's a journey that's unique to each individual. And it's difficult to see the next step in that path, or it's difficult to even find that path if you're standing in your own way. If you're sabotaging your own life by making poor, unconscious decisions all the time. And so I think that self-sabotage is very fundamental to finding your path to self-mastery, or overcoming self-sabotage is, because you got to get yourself out of the way. And once you do that, you're able to really start to develop a greater awareness of who you are, what you want, and most importantly, like what emotional state you need to live in order to experience and achieve the results that you're looking for in life. So back to self-sabotage. So like, for example, Mike, like I work with people on a one-on-one basis. We'll work, months at a time together, meet every week, that sort of thing. But specifically with self-sabotage, it's a very intense, very focused 2-session program. And how that works, let me think of one client specifically. She's an amazing woman, as so many people are, but she just makes decisions that she knows aren't good for her health. Like, so a big issue for her is smoking cigarettes. It's caused her a lot of problems. It's caused her a lot of problems with her, like dental health and these sorts of things. But also like not valuing herself enough to enter into and maintain relationships with people who honor her and treat her with respect, such as a long history of these short-lived relationships with abusive people, people who take advantage of her. And she also has this tendency to over obligate herself to other people, allow people to, basically like use her time, energy, and wealth to support other people when they should be supporting themselves. So
this is sorry to cut you off. This is actually an interesting pattern that I've came across quite a few times already as well with my coaching practice. That is like people who give too much, they want to take care of other people. They often lack self-love themselves. And then they keep attracting people who treat them the same way as they treat themselves.
Yep.
Even though they are, good, kind people helping so many other people. And you would think that people would respect that, but they actually attract the opposite. And I see this seems to be a big pattern. And
so it's if you look at patterns, patterns are, where do they come from? And that's really what we do as a self-sabotage coach. So the process would look like, when she started to work with me, I sent her our questionnaire. It's like a 13-page. It's very in-depth. It talks a whole lot in your personal history, your family history. It talks a lot, they ask questions about your siblings. How did they turn out? What is your lifestyle like? What's your diet like? What kind of medicines you're on? And how often do you visit the doctor? What do you it's very, very comprehensive. And so what I do as a trained coach is I look at that and I analyze it and I look for the patterns, just like we talked about. And it's always really, really easy to see, Mike, like people pick up these patterns from their parents. So like from their parents or the situation that they were raised in. So like in her case, it was very much the father treated the mother this way. The father was, there's a lot of adultery going on behind the scenes, a lot of gambling, cheating, taking advantage of the wife's, earnings, this sorts of thing. And there was also, smoking and drinking in the house. And so many of us have gone through this. It was coffee consumption, everything, basically this every day, this presentation of an assault on one's nervous system. And that becomes the pattern, the ideal. That's what the young person sees. That's what the subconscious mind recognizes as how to live. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what the big people do. This is what everybody else does. And so as a child, you don't have the physical capacity to defend yourself. You can't pick up a shotgun and shoot somebody, or you can't karate kick someone to the head to defend yourself. You can't pay your own rent. You can't even pay your own groceries. So you're very, in the mind, it's innate. It's just an innate part of our nature that this first stage of our life, we absorb to fit in. And we need to fit in because if we don't fit in with our tribe, they're going to, drop us off at the orphanage, right? Or like in the caveman days back in the day, they'll leave you behind the tribe and you're there to fend for yourself. So to fit in is survival. Survival is to fit in. That's what the subconscious mind believes. And the subconscious mind is an extraordinarily powerful mechanism. People don't really understand the depth of it, to be honest. I've noticed it controls some 95 to 99% of your behavior. And you can see this over and over. And we use a lot of different examples of how hypnotists and mentalists work to quickly subconsciously convince people to draw certain pictures, for example, and they'll think they're drawing these pictures organically, but they really have been programmed through subliminal messaging and stuff. Really, it can happen in a flash. But we show them how powerful the subconscious mind is, and so part of the process of self-sabotage coaching is educating the client on how powerful their mind is. The subconscious mind, it's known to pick up, it's around 11 bits of information a second, 11 million bits of information a second, whereas the conscious mind has been measured to pick up only about 140 bits of information a second. So it's a vast difference. And we all know how this works when we drive a car. Like you're focused on driving the car, but you're not thinking about it. But if somebody were to swerve at you from the side, you would automatically, course correct and avoid the accident because your subconscious mind is watching everything. It sees everything around you. It sees everything while you're sleeping. It sees everything, even when you're in especially when you're like in a hypnotic state, watching TV or media. Like it absorbs everything. And so it's always looking for the repetitive behaviors. How the subconscious mind works is if it sees something happen once in the environment, okay. If it sees something happen twice, like somebody tattooing their face, for example, it starts to take note. If it sees all of a sudden celebrities and music stars and everybody has face tattoos, the subconscious mind starts to believe it ranks that behavior as being a safer behavior amongst the tribe. And if I do this, I'll have a better chance of fitting in. If I fit in, I won't be rejected. I will be accepted. I won't be ostracized or kicked out. I have a better chance of survival by being with, being amongst the perceived powerful tribe. So, like as in the client's case, like she lived through this, and so she picked up all these patterns as a young lady, and you could just see working with him and talking to him that it just has been repeating over and over through her life. The ways that she goes about getting attention. She wasn't able to get the attention that she needed when she was a kid, so she would threaten herself as a kid. She would starve herself as a kid to get attention from her parents. And so you see her doing these same things as an adult. So the first part of the process really is the analysis of their past. The second part of the process is the education on how the subconscious mind works and how powerful it is. And the third part of the process is offering techniques and ideas and very proven ways to change the way that you perceive what's possible for you, change the patterns in your subconscious mind. So the whole second session will be about addressing the specific, very specific patterns. So like in a case like hers, like there's a pattern of self-abuse, like the most, because these are things also that we learn from Hollywood, we learn from TV, we learn from mainstream media, we learn from magazines, pop culture in general. There's a few really key programs running in our society these days that would be considered self-abusive or self-defeating programs. The top one in that category would be the self-abuse program. Everybody's being trained to drink till you puke, right? Like just destroy your body, go out and eat. Watch TV, these messages are just basically like just abuse yourself with junk food, abuse yourself with, this is absolutely cool. The cool people do this. The cool people do the drugs. The cool people are popping Xanax all day, air day, so this would be the self-abuse program, and it's widely allowed and promoted throughout media. And so you see these I would identify like the top program that I see running in a client's life. So another couple of examples of those would be the anti-wealth programming. I know that wealth is a big issue for a lot of people. People don't understand what money is. People don't understand why they have a hard time making money, holding on to money, staying out of debt. And the primary reason for that is because of the anti-wealth programming going on in mainstream media, again, in Hollywood and everything. I mean, think about it. How many movies have you seen where the bad guy is the rich guy, the billionaire, right? He's heartless, he's cruel, he's got no soul, he wants to destroy life. There's my dog, he's barking. But the good guy is the poor guy. The good guy is the noble guy, and their struggle is to raise a bunch of money to save grandma's diner or whatever it is. And they do these not by earning up to their potential, but they do these in all these harebrained schemes. And they've basically been trained to believe that struggling around money is noble. And that's the thing. The anti-wealth program is that money struggling is noble. It's good to struggle with money. So we see this all the time in our world. And I know people listening to this can relate to that. Another one of these programs would be like the hedonism, the debauchery, right? With so much talk about gender identity and sexual identity politics and everything, you see that like we're narrowing down what the possibility is for a human being down to like one small fraction, one small bandwidth of their potential identity. So we're telling people that like their sexual identity is their identity. So within that, there's a whole world of debauchery and hedonism, and there's a whole world of exploration. And so what this does, this leads to the breakup of traditional families. As we see, like especially here in America, there's a fatherhood crisis. I mean, there's so many fatherless children out there right now. It's very sad. There's a lot of divorce rates are higher than ever. So it really is about attacking the home. It's about attacking the stability of the nuclear family. And so when you really zoom out on some of this, Mike, it gets really interesting, and it gets into some of the what you could call the conspiracy talk. But really, these programs are in play in our society for a very specific reason. This is everybody's witnessing right now the breakdown of society, and it happens because people don't value life. They don't understand wealth. They don't. Their connection to their family and their community is being broken. There are wedges between them and other people in their communities are being formed, and so these programs are very much an attack on society as whole. And the reason for that is because those presenting this information and these ideas to the public really want to create an environment to where it's easy to control people, to where it's easy to get large numbers of people to get along with whatever's thrown at them. And everyone can see this more clearly than ever with COVID and the policies and the adherence to these insane policies. The censorship of information, which would lead a logical, rational thinking person to understand that a lot of these policies don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to destroy small businesses and keep large businesses open. It doesn't make sense to isolate people and have them stay inside. If this is an issue of health, they need to be out getting exercise and getting sunlight. If things like isolation lead to depression and increased susceptibility to disease, then it doesn't make sense, if we're fighting a disease, to keep people isolated from their churches, families, communities. So as we like to say, it only makes sense if you don't think about it. So when I leave a client, what I leave a client with is I leave them with a whole program of, we use a lot of hypnosis, self-hypnosis, to get directly into their subconscious mind, to retrain their understanding of what's possible for them. And we also use a lot of ways to, in a waking state, to access their subconscious mind with the right positive messages, the messages that really reinforce who they want to be and who they deserve to be. So there's really a lot to it, but that's the process of the self-sabotage coaching. We analyze, we educate, and then we advise them on reprogramming their subconscious mind, and it is exceptionally powerful work.
And with hypnosis, this is just like listening to some affirmations when you meditate or you lay down, these kind of things.
Well, hypnosis is a little bit different. It's more specific than that. What hypnosis does is and I'll use the analogy of TV, real important, because people don't understand the power that the media has when they're speaking to you through the television or the computer screen. So what it does is, when you look at the TV, it's been proven that within 90 seconds you have a good chance of going into like an alpha or lower brainwave state. So the brain operates at, the brain, you have electricity running through your brain essentially, and the frequency of that information, the frequency of the frequency of that electricity in your brain will determine what attention you have, where your attention is, how big or expanded your attention is. And so in the lower brainwave states, your conscious mind begins to slip away. And so what hypnosis does, and what the TV does this through the frame rate, it does this through the color of the lighting, it does this through the like the droning sound of like the news, the way they drone on and whatnot. But once the person's brainwave has been slowed down into an alpha state or lower, information coming into them bypasses the conscious mind and moves directly into the subconscious mind. So when you do hypnosis, you'll hear the hypnotherapist say things like, now, you're falling asleep, you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. So what they're doing with that process is they're opening a doorway to your subconscious mind, and they're pushing the conscious mind out of the way, so that anything they tell you once you're in the hypnotic state has a direct, it goes directly downloaded into the subconscious mind. So if you were to look at the subconscious mind as a supercomputer, if you will, this is how you access the programs running on that computer. So in that hypnotic state, to give you an example, hypnosis on quitting smoking, for example. Once a person is in that hypnotic state, they may even look like they're sleeping. They may even feel like they're sleeping. But the information is bypassing what's called the critical factor of the mind. So the critical factor can be seen as like the line between the conscious and the subconscious mind. So if you look at an iceberg, for example, you see a small piece of the iceberg. The water line would be the critical factor, and the huge piece of the iceberg, the 90+% of the iceberg below the surface, is the subconscious mind. But we have this piece of the mind called the critical factor, and so hypnosis breaks through the critical factor. The news breaks through the critical factor, and the way that the news does that is by using high emotion. So the news will present fear to you. What are the latest traffic accidents? What are the latest statistics on earthquakes? What are the latest war? What's going on with various wars? What's the most horrible financial news? When you're high emotion, whether it's like your fear or your sense of sexuality is triggered, which a lot of like advertisements do, a lot of commercials do that. They use sexually charged imageries. They use these beautiful models to sell cheeseburgers and all this nonsense. Keystone beers, right, with these bikini babes parachuting in. But what that does is the emotional charge of that, it shuts down the critical thinking part of the mind. So you're no longer analyzing, you're no longer consciously choosing or making decisions about what you're seeing. You're straight into the subconscious mind. So as the hypnosis gets in there and is able to basically just override the programs that are in there with whatever needs to be said. So like again with the smoking program, you'll go in there and you'll fill their subconscious mind with a whole bunch of ideas about how smoking is really bad for your health, about it doesn't make sense, it's illogical, it's disgusting, it's nasty, and all this stuff. And that's why smoking hypnosis is very effective, like a 75% or something close to that effective rate. So when their subconscious mind begins to believe that smoking is a stupid thing to do, they have a hard time picking up a cigarette. They pick it up and they're just like, why am I doing this? It overrides the power of the addiction of nicotine itself. So it's a very powerful way. So you can use hypnosis for anything, really. You can use hypnosis to overcome pain, to change your wealth programming, to boost your self-confidence, your self-esteem. You can use it for anything. So that is, really the number one most powerful way to get in and reconfigure the programs running on your subconscious mind to make it possible for you to live happily, successfully, to make progress on your goals and dreams, right?
Are there people who have difficulties with reprogramming their minds through hypnosis?
Well, it's interesting because hypnosis doesn't work on everybody. Like a person has to be open to it, right? So I think about my experiences with plant medicines in this. I've been part of the journeys of hundreds of people with the plant medicine, the Amazonian medicine, ayahuasca, as a participant and also a facilitator of ceremonies. And so I've seen literally hundreds of people go through, and there's always people in ceremonies that have a hard time letting go, releasing their control over the experience, their desire to control the experience. And so the impact, the full impact of the experience of the medicine doesn't reach them. It can't get through. They're putting up such a barrier. So it really has to do a lot with the person's willingness to change. And that's why like with self-sabotage coaching, it's not something that you can really offer for free. It's not something that I can really go to somebody in my family and say, hey, I could, you're self-sabotaging yourself, right? And they'll be like, oh yeah, and I'll be like, well, why don't I give you this great program for free and you go do this program and I'll walk you through it and then it'll change your life. It doesn't work that way because the person has to be at that point in their life where they're ready to change. So I only work with people who have a sincere desire to change, because those are the people that will take the information and run with it. A lot of people want to change, but they won't do the work. So even with a program like Self-Sabotage, like there's work to do afterwards. They have to be conscious of how they're living. They have to be conscious of the information that they're taking into their subconscious mind. They have to be smart and intelligent. They have to get the chemicals out of their body that keep their body physiologically running in fight or flight mode, a high stress mode, which make it difficult for them to think with the higher parts of the brain. And so it is work, but when people are ready for that, when people are willing to invest in themselves on that level, it's a very high success rate.
Yeah. Can you give us, one thing, definitely what you said about people need to want to change, right? Because
right.
You cannot work with someone who is not willing to do the work. This is always the major problem with anything. If you are, let's say, a personal trainer, someone comes to you and they want to lose, 50 kilograms or whatever. If they're not willing to do the work, sweat, not eat junk food in the evenings, then you can be the best trainer in the world and it won't work, right? So it's the same with coaching, right? I think it's the
same with college as well. People go to college and they're not really interested in learning, and so they don't absorb the information, and they don't get anything out of it. They just waste their money.
Exactly. So this is like the first thing for everyone who is interested in like making, working with a coach or making big changes in their lives. You really have to have the desire, and it won't be easy often, right? You're gonna have to do the work. Same with plant medicines, right? You get the lessons, but then afterwards you need to integrate the
Mm-hmm.
lessons. You need to
Right.
apply what you learned, right?
Yeah, you have to honor the experiences that you had by living into what you learned. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's there's a saying like for a program like Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a saying that nothing changes until you change. And in my personal experience, I had to go all the way to rock bottom in order to want to decide in order to want to change. So a lot of people are faced with that. A lot of people just feel like they run out of time, they run out of options, their relationships are falling apart, or they've already fallen apart, or they're in the doctor all the time with health issues, or they're just broke, whatever it is. But yeah, people have a tendency to get to a point where they just can't take it anymore, and so you either give up on life in general, which a lot of people do, or you decide to make a change. And it's really, really powerful to me to see what happens in someone when they fully decide to turn their lives around. And I know you, man, with the work that you've done at TruthTheory, you've posted and shared so many positive stories of transformation, and I've done the same. And it's a really amazing thing to see what happens when a person actually commits. And that really what this is all about. It's about what we're talking about here. It's about the thing that I like to refer to as commitment consciousness. Right. So until somebody has commitment consciousness to change, to creating a business, to being a good father, whatever it is, until they have this commitment consciousness, like they're gonna be stuck in that Groundhog Day loop. They're gonna be doing the same things over and over again, and not really seeing the results that they want, and not understanding why. But a lot of this, man, like I really love looking at this in terms of like a hero's journey. And I know you know all about this, but there's if you look at like the archetypal story of the growth of a human being, it's presented over and over again in movies and books. Homer's Odyssey is one of the original ones, but Star Wars, Lord of the Rings is a great example. Basically it's this the character is living in an everyday reality, right? Things may or may not be going well, but they're certainly not. They certainly know they're not living into their fullest, what could be their fullest experience of life. And so they'll receive what Carl Jung referred to as the call to adventure. The call to adventure. And even Joseph Campbell talks about this stuff. And most people ignore the call. They don't answer the phone. And the phone keeps ringing. And so for a lot of people, especially people perhaps in like your demographic, it shows up as, oh, I got a DWI, right? Oh, I got another DWI, or oh, I got fired from my job, or oh, my wife left me, or oh, I've got diabetes now. What have I done to my body? So unfortunately, the call to adventure often comes as negative news, as a negative experience for people. In my case, it was like rock bottom with, like I said, drug and alcohol addiction. And so at some point, people either answer the call or they don't. And to not answer the call is a rejection of their own life. It's a rejection of their own spiritual potential. It's an official divorce from their soul. But when you answer the call, the most amazing things happen up. You answer the call and you're immediately filled with this consciousness of commitment, like I talk about. And then nothing will stop you. You set out on your path, and the most amazing things happen. And I see this all the time with my personal coaching when I work with people one-on-one. It's like when they commit to working with me or commit to working with a coach and they decide to change and actually take the information and employ it into their life on a regular basis and do what they're instructed to do, then it creates a shift in their energy. It creates a renewed commitment to their own life. And you know this as well, and I'm sure many of the viewers know this, that when you enter into that state of commitment consciousness, the synchronicities appear. Life becomes magical. You're in a state of wonder about things that happen to you. Certain books fall into your life, or you'll see a certain sign on the highway that just makes perfect sense, or the right teachers will show up in the most random places, or job opportunities or career opportunities or travel opportunities just automatically appear, whereas prior to that you felt like your life was closed off and getting smaller, like you were living in a type of cage that you had created for yourself. Once you commit to stepping out of that cage, like the universe, it provides it. If you jump, you will be supported. And so that's part of the hero's journey. And so, of course, once you step out on that journey, once you start to get the information from the guide that you need in order to develop the strength and the personal powers, that time that the hero always spends in the dojo or training with Yoda, right? Once you commit to doing that, you then find that you're going to have to face your demons. You're going to have to enter that cave. You're going to have to really face yourself, and you're going to find out that it's not easy to walk into the depths of that cave to really understand yourself. And for me, like the world of shamanic plant medicines is the best place for someone like myself to really enter that cave and go deeply within themselves to see what's really in there. And so, of course, there's the classic battle with the dragons in there, right? And it's not really an attempt to kill the dragons or slay the dragons. It's an attempt to wrestle control and power from the dragons so that you can bring their allyship into your life. So all of these powers, whether they be dark or light, that are dormant within you, that haven't been accessed in your state of contemporary consciousness, you confront all this and you learn to corral all this power and use it to your advantage. So when you come out of the cave, you're leveled up. You're leveled up. And this is all metaphorically speaking, but it happens all the time in people's lives. And so I really help people to look at themselves in a way, like make a commitment to themselves. Look honestly about the ways in which you live, the way in which your shadow appears in your life, the ways in which you're playing victim rather than warrior, the ways in which you're being a child rather than your own king or queen, the ways in which you're sabotaging your life rather than being the magician of your life. The magician being the metaphor of that part of you that has the ability to bring all of your skills, all of your experience, all of the knowledge that you have, all of the intuition that you have into the battle that you're in for your life to make the battle turn in your favor. It's Gandalf showing up on the eastern hill, right, on the fifth day or whatever it is, And so this really is about a journey. And when you take this journey and when you're willing to look honestly at yourself, you basically return back to your normal life, but more whole, more complete, with a deep connection to your own power. And so what I mean by your own power, how that would show up in somebody's life is kind of something we touched on earlier. People live without their power. They live with a disconnection to their own power. And so what does that really mean? It means that they over-obligate themselves, they people please, they do more for others than they do for themselves. They are afraid on an unconscious level to speak their own beliefs, their own truths. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of, and these are like the most basic things that hold people back from doing what they really want to do, is that fear of rejection, that fear of being made fun of if you put yourself out there, whatever that means. And so standing in your power really means that you're not trying to force any outcomes in your life by bending to anyone else's desires. You're not trying to force any outcome in your life by trying to conform to the trap of contemporary culture, by trying to do what the Matrix says you should do, or what celebrity culture says we should do. You're no longer trying to force yourself into happiness by conforming and being obedient to all the rules and the tyranny and the authoritarianism out there, because you're powerful. And so I really help people to understand the difference between power and force and how that plays out in their life. And people are always saying, man, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. People are always saying, Mike, I'm trying this, I'm trying that, I'm trying to get some work done, I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying. Well, that's a language that gives you a clue about what energy they're bringing into their life. If someone's trying, well, trying it's a competition. It's an act of force, right? You're trying to exert yourself. And so the nature of force is that it requires counterforce. It requires a loser and a winner. Most of the time, you're going to end up being the loser, right? It's a balance of power that burns energy. Power itself is totally different. Power doesn't require force. Power stands alone. Bruce Lee's famous for saying, "Be like water, my friends," right? And water is perhaps one of the most powerful substances, the powerful entities, if you will, that we know on Earth, because water doesn't have the physical structure to overtake anything. It moves with its own mass, and it flows, and it literally, just with the power of itself, it can destroy anything. And so when a person is in their power, they're no longer in that struggle with themselves. They're no longer trying to accomplish things. They're living in an attractive state of consciousness to where They have the courage, the willingness, the acceptance, and the drive to actually just ask and receive for what they want, to concentrate on the work that they want to do. Procrastination falls away, avoidance falls away, because they're able to live with the energy of commitment and purpose to themselves. So it's really a cool thing to see when people do that, when people actually commit to their own transformation and their own personal growth. And I love it. I love being a part of people's journey on this level.
I actually want to ask you about something specific, because you're probably going to have an idea. So you said how, let's say if you have a family member who would, you would feel like you want to help them, but
Right.
they won't pay you, or they might not take it seriously, then it probably won't work out, right? And I've came across a couple of cases when I would have someone close to me where I see the pattern that is, slowing them down or destroying their lives,
Right.
but they are not able to see it themselves. And I'm trying to explain it, show it to them, maybe sometimes even pick someone else who sees the same pattern, because we often don't see our own patterns, but when you look from the outside, someone else, especially if they have the knowledge, they can see it. And with some of these people, sometimes it's the most important block in their lives, because they say I lost my wife because of that, or there is a pattern, and their state attracts all the outcomes now. So
Right.
until they clear the pattern, all these other things cannot work, right? So and I've seen whenever you try to bring it up or try to explain with some of these people, they just don't get it, or they think even no matter how you try to explain it, they might look at it as a form of attack or something like that. I'm talking about friends or someone close to you, like a family. And I found it really fascinating, because it's you have the most important thing to fix in your life to get what you want to get. You don't see that there are people who can see this around you, and you're not even able to open your mind, or you open yourself to listen and get that constructive criticism, whatever you want to think about it. So for someone like me, if I would get someone trying to bring it up to me, I would definitely pay attention and try to see if they have, maybe I'm missing on something, or I'm not seeing something. But I see there are a lot of people who are not close to it. What do you think about it? Why is this happening? And I don't know, I'm sure you've met people like that as well.
But the ego is something that is challenged, and so the ego loves to live in these lower states of consciousness. Fear of taking a risk for your own chance of success, fear of, like I said before, being rejected from your tribe, being judged and criticized by others, even those imaginary others. And so that really is the work of a good coach, is to help people to understand how their lives get trauma bonded to people, and how to unravel that, and how their ego stands in the way of their own success.
Yeah, ego. And also I think sometimes, we said about 95% of behavior is run by programs. Sometimes these programs, because the challenges they have are part of programming, right?
Right.
They repeat the same kind of behaviors over and over, and it's
Over and over.
so strong, so embedded, that they don't get the information, from the outside to try to rewrite the program, or start noticing the program, because the program is extremely strong, right? It's like a hypnosis, right?
Yep.
You get someone trying to explain this to you, you just don't see it. You if it's
Right.
like you said, it touches on your ego, whatever,
Right.
and you even get defensive to it. So I don't know. I guess it's fascinating that some people seems to have that, and there are people maybe who are just more introspective, did more work on themselves, or understand bigger picture. They are able to at least start paying attention to some of these things. So yeah, and
Yeah,
is
and
there anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, just let me just say something to that specific point before we cut it out here, finish up or whatever. But that what you just said is specifically why we focus on in self-sabotage coaching. What we focus intensively on the education as the first part of the work together. We really help people to understand the big secret that's already in play in our society, in every corner of society. The advertisers know it. Edward Bernays and guys like these, the propagandists of the early 20th century, they all learned how group psychology works. They all learned how to manipulate group psychology. They all learned how to trick people into thinking with their non-analytical parts of their mind. And they also learn very well how to get inside people's subconscious minds to give them ideas. I mean, if you look at the history of propaganda, the history of advertising, like what did the smoking industry do? The cigarette industry do? I mean, they really trained people to smoke. They had doctors out there smoking, so they had authority figures doing it. They had women on TV doing, what do they call those? They call torches of freedom. You can look that up on YouTube, torches of freedom. It's really interesting.
Bernays, I think
Bernays, yeah.
He introduced that idea because women with cigarette seemed like,
right.
Something that people wasn't for women, right?
It wasn't acceptable, and they were like, hey, let's run an experiment and make this acceptable. And so they did some very specific campaigns with the public relations in a very specific, very targeted way, and were able to completely change the landscape of American culture at that time, like completely. And so this is the secret that advertisers, propagandists, the CIA, whoever's out there, this is the secret that they know and they're using against you. And it, to the newcomer, it may sound like a big mystery. It may sound very esoteric and difficult to understand, but I educate people on this, and really, really quickly people can see, oh, this makes sense. Because I can show them evidence, pieces of evidence, videos, clips from movies, clips from real life. I can show them pictures of 1-year-old, 2-year-old kids mimicking a TV, doing the Rocky fighting, TV, every punch thrown. Like if you understand how the mind works, that gives you a lot of power in your life. Because first and foremost, you can see, it's like that movie They Live, where Roddy Piper takes off, puts on the glasses, and you can see the manipulations in our society. So you can see that, and you can protect yourself from that by avoiding that information and not hanging around those people who are clearly trying to influence you to destroy yourself. But the other thing is, what you realize pretty quickly is that, they're using this stuff against you because it works. And if it works for them, it works just as easily for you. And so you can use this sense of repetition, this sense of subconscious programming, of reinforcement of your own positive core values in your life to quickly turn things around. And that's really where the hope is. And so a big part of the self-sabotage coaching is helping people to understand that. Dude, once the light comes on and once people start to see this, once we really break through their demystify how the mind works. I mean, this is literally, the subconscious mind is probably the most studied thing in history. I mean, this goes back to like Kabbalion, right? It goes back to the mentalists. It goes back to Egypt. It goes back to everything. Like, people were understanding that the subconscious mind has tremendous power, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality. It doesn't know the difference between what it sees on a TV screen, and it also doesn't know the difference between between any of those things and what you visualize in your own mind. So if you watch a movie screen and you go into a state of hypnosis, all of that violence, all of that chaos is real to your subconscious mind, and it goes out into the world, and it views the world with that perspective of chaos and violence. If you were to see that in real life, you would have trauma and PTSD. If you were to sit and visualize in your own mind something like a lemon, your subconscious mind can trick your salivary glands into producing a bitter sensation and the production of saliva in your mouth, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. All it needs is images, visualizations, and imagery in order to change its perception of what the reality is for you.